UHD quality video streaming, internet like a boss. SLT Mobitel Fiber. UHD quality video streaming, internet like a boss. SLT Mobitel Fiber.
Double perfume lock සමග try කරන්න best ever sunlight rose.
Tonight, mega plans. Ports officials unveil grand Gold Tourist Port project.
Gold Port land area will be increased by 40 hectares with the land reclamation using dredging material.
Starting over. The Ministry of Health makes a minimum of a $50,000 insurance cover for COVID mandatory for foreign travellers as it releases exit strategy for COVID patients and eases inbound travel restrictions. Lights on. The Public Utilities Commission assures no power cuts until next week.
We made a decision analysing the available data of the demand and supply of electricity. There is no need for us to go for scheduled power cuts until next Monday.
Alive and kicking. India's anti-terror agency exposes LTTE revival funding racket by Sri Lankan exiles. This Thursday, the 27th of January 2022.
සියයක් ස්වාභාවිකව ලබාගත් සාරයන් සමග නව ලයිෆ් බොයි කෝමාරිකා.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening, welcome to First at 9, I'm Dham Kekanai. Now then, the Public Utilities Commission has given the people some peace of mind, assuring that there will be no power cuts until next Monday. It made the decision today following a meeting with the Ceylon Electricity Board. The move, however, is not pleasing the CEB trade unions, and they want 2-hour daily power cuts going forward. Now, they are also unhappy with how fuel is currently being supplied to power plants. Sri Lanka's struggles concerning forex is now global knowledge. Its links to present issues in the power sector are also no secret. Though the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation is currently providing necessary fuel to power plants, the Ceylon Electricity Board isn't happy. They say that since the fuel is supplied by Bowsers, many practical issues have arisen owing to time-consuming nature of the storage process. Meanwhile, the CEB's United Trade Union Alliance seems unconcerned about the larger picture of the forex shortage. While calling the current process of fuel supply to power plants a reload system, it questions as to how a government institution could operate in such a state. Quoting CEB engineers, they are also calling for daily power cuts, saying that if power supply is not interrupted for 2 hours a day, a 4-hour power cut will be inevitable in the future. Despite their warnings, the Minister of Power assures that all power plants are operational except one.
Diesel බලාගාර සියල්ලම වගේ ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ නිසා මේ දැන්ට තියෙන තත්ත්වය යටතේ මම හිතන්නේ අපිට විදුලි කැපීමකින් තොරව යන්න පුළුවන්. ඉන්ධන දැවිතෙල් සහ ඩීසල් ලැබෙමින් පවතිනවා. ඒ නිසා සපුගස්කන්ධ කැලණි 30 ඒ වගේම වරාය තියෙන ෆ්ලෝටිං බලාගාරය ඒ සියල්ලම වැඩ කරනවා. ඒකම කැලණි 30 තීච්ච සූජි කියන බලාගාරයේ වාර්ෂික නඩත්තු කිරීම සඳහා මම හිතා දවස් 3-4ක් නවත්තනවා. ඒකම ජල විදුලියත් අපි බලාපොරොත්තු ආකාරයට ලැබෙනවා. ලබන සුමාන වෙනකොට නොරොච්චෝලි ගල්ලඟුරු බලාගාරයේ ඉතුරු මෙගාවට් 300 ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙනවා. ඒ දැවිතෙල් වලින් දුවන බලාගාර වලට තේ සංස්ථාවෙන් නිපදවන මේ විවිධ වර්ග පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන්. දැවිතෙල් වලට ඩීසල් පාවිච්චි කරාම ඒකේ කාර්යක්ෂමතාවය වැඩි වෙනවා. නමුත් ඒව හදලා තියෙන්නේ දෙකෙන්ම දුවන්න පුළුවන් විදියට.
In the meantime, the Public Utilities Commission delivered some welcome news to people who were dreading the dark.
We made a decision analysing the available data of the demand and supply of electricity. There is no need for us to go for scheduled power cuts until next Monday. But there is a little shortage tomorrow. Up to around 30 megawatts of power is not enough during the peak hours. Therefore, I would like to urge and request the consumers of electricity to sparingly use the electricity during the peak hours, that is from 6:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. in order to support the CB who is trying to manage the situation without going for scheduled power cuts, and our decision is not to approve the scheduled power cuts for next 2-3 days.
Now then, plans to develop the historic Galle Harbour into a tourist port were revealed yesterday at an investment symposium organised by the Sri Lanka Ports Authority. Parts of the plan include long cruise berths that can accommodate some of the largest cruise vessels in the world. The project expects an investment of $175 million and is likely to be a public-private engagement. The Galle Port Development Symposium was worked off yesterday under the patronage of Minister of Ports and Shipping Rohita Begunawardena. The objective of the symposium was to unveil the plans of the government to develop the Galle Harbour as a fully fledged tourist port. To this end, the expected investment is $175 million. Under the Galle Port Development Project, a 150-metre cruise berth and a 12.5-metre draft to accommodate largest cruise vessels in the world will also be constructed. What's more, 2 offshore breakwaters, 850 metres and 150 metres in length, will be constructed to maintain sufficient calmness in the Galle Bay and harbour.
At the first phase of this development plan aims to construct the breakwaters in the outer vicinity of Galle Bay to maintain sufficient calmness. The reduced wave heights and calmness in the bay will open a wider avenue for economic and tourism activities in the region. As such, seawater activities facilitating several marina facilities and shelter for the small boats during favourable weather. At present, Galle Port has the facility to berth cruise vessels, but with this development, a new cruise berth will be available in Galle Port to accommodate the largest cruise vessel in the world. Galle Port land area will be increased by 40 hectares with the land reclamation using dredging material. The investors will give an opportunity to develop a super modern real estate business incorporating apartments, hotels, villas, leisure parks, etc. in this area. Further, construction of a state-of-the-art cruise terminal retaining the colonial heritage architecture for cruise clients to enjoy whilst relaxing in the stunning modern-day facilities. Express of interest EOI process will be commenced in early February 2022.
During the Q&A session that followed, more details with regard to the Galle Port Development Project were revealed.
At the moment, we are in a position to offer fiscal concessions as well. So depending on the nature of the project, its impact to the overall Galle Port Development Program, as well as the impact to the national economy, we should be able to structure a custom incentive package that would benefit both the country as well as the investor. It will be very much project-based.
Generally, these type of project, the investor could discuss with the BOI as well as with the GOSL, and they could request even special tax concessions for a longer period of time. We are open to discuss all.
This is an open competitive bidding process where we will start from invitation for the expression of interest. Once we receive these things, so we will pre-qualify the investors, then we will call for the request of proposals.
SLPA will be a part of this thing because this is obviously our property. And we are going to have a partnership, probably a PPP kind of a thing. And modality is, since this is going as a EOI, the suggestions could come from the investors, what they would like to request from us. Then we could open up certain other things. We don't have to fix into a certain framework. We could open up certain avenues. Because of that, I don't see any fixed mechanism that we should get into the investment. We could have several investors coming in, various parts of the project, but SLPA will coordinate, and BOT could be a good one, PPP is a good one. These all the things are open.
The Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, meanwhile, says that obtaining approvals from various agencies for a single project is a pain point for investors, which ultimately causes losses of investment in the country's tourism sector. With that being the case, the SLTDA signed memorandums of understanding with 8 government institutions to facilitate tourism investment approval and reduce red tape. Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority inked Memorandum of Understanding with government institutions in order to expedite the process of approving investments in the tourism sector. Accordingly, MOUs were inked with 8 institutions, including the Central Environmental Authority, the Wildlife Department, the Department of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, and the National Building Research Organisation.
We have started the investment relation unit
which was called at the time as One Stop Unit, about 11 years ago. From that time, we have received over 1,006 development projects for approval. That was worth about 7.5 billion US dollars. However, out of all this, about 3.8 billion worth of projects were approved so far. We have thought about why it takes so long to approve a project. And we realize that there are various agencies, not only one, two, sometimes about 30 agencies that need to give approval for a tourism development project. So for an investor, it's such a pain point. They have to run from one agency to the other agency to get their approval. So we understood this pain point and then tried to address this by close coordination with all the relevant stakeholders. There are so many important stakeholders in this. Most importantly is the environment. What we want is here to safeguard the environment, because environment, the natural capital, is our largest, most important capital. Therefore, we want to safeguard our heritage and develop tourism investment. Especially FDI and other investment is very important in this context. That is why we want to make the journey of an investor as smooth and painless as possible. We are already working on the investment case management system and online platform where we can do this even smoothly as well as more transparently. So we are planning to have it ready by March this year.
Tourism is one of the main area the investors are interested. But the problem is we have to pass so many hurdles. But there are a lot of investors, they are willing to invest in Sri Lanka. But the problem is our red tapes. We can't demolish everything, but anyway, we want to have some kind of facility. The government expect in 2030 around 10 billion US dollars as an income. So we want to achieve the task. We want to get more support from the wildlife and forest department. Wildlife, they are annual income, most of them from foreign tourists. But forest department, they don't have such a program, but they have a lot of resources.
We will see you shortly. Bear with us.
Big 3.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, Foreign Minister Professor G.L. Pires has briefed the foreign envoys in Colombo on a host of changes that will be introduced to the country's Prevention of Terrorism Act. The act is a major point of contention at international fora, with foreign nations criticizing it, alleging that it violates human rights.
Foreign Minister Professor G.L. Pires had addressed the diplomatic corps yesterday during the first diplomatic briefing for the year 2022. Its objective had been to share information on progress related to human rights and reconciliation ahead of the upcoming 49th session of the Human Rights Council, which will get underway in the last week of February. The minister had noted that the Prevention of Terrorism Act is being amended with the objective of bringing it in line with international norms and best practices. He had informed that cabinet approval had been obtained to gazette the bill containing the proposed amendments and thereafter to table the bill in Parliament for final approval. The Foreign Minister had explained to the envoys that substantive amendments to the PTA include amendments to the sections on detention orders, restriction orders, expressly recognizing judicial review of orders, expeditious disposal of cases of those charged to avoid long-term detention, repealing sections impinging on freedom of expression, and introduction of provisions on access by magistrates and judicial medical officers, prevention of maltreatment and torture during the detention period, right to communicate with the family, grant of bail to long-term detainees, and day-to-day hearing of cases. He had also referred to the establishment of an advisory board under Section 13 of the PTA to advise the Minister of Defence on long-term detainees. Any person who has been issued a detention order or a restriction order under the PTA is provided an opportunity to request a review of the order. On the Presidential Task Force on Archaeological Heritage Management, the Minister had informed that representatives of the Tamil and Muslim communities had been included. During the process, Resident Coordinator of the United Nations, Hannah Singer Hamdi, had appreciated the work done by the relevant national institutions in the areas of transitional justice, achievement of the SDGs, and amendments to the PTA. Ambassador of Egypt Majid Mosleh, meanwhile, had highlighted the importance of the international community working with Sri Lanka to promote human rights and reconciliation, and had observed the impressive achievements made by Sri Lanka in combating terrorism and dealing with its aftermath.
The arrest of a Sri Lankan woman in October for possession of forged Indian identity documents has exposed a major conspiracy by LTTE operatives in Tamil Nadu to funnel funds to Sri Lankan operatives. India's domestic anti-terror agency, the National Investigation Agency, revealed that the suspect and 4 other Sri Lankans used forged identity documents to access funds from a bank account in Mumbai and used them to revive the organisation.
India's central anti-terror arm, the National Investigation Agency, has once again taken over a probe into activities linked to the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam in Tamil Nadu. The arrest of a Sri Lankan woman by the Tamil Nadu police last October for possession of forged Indian identity documents revealed details of a much larger conspiracy. According to the agency, the suspect, identified as Lechumanan Mary Francisca, had arrived in India using her Sri Lankan passport in December 2019 with an electronic tourist visa valid for 1 year. Afterwards, with the onset of the pandemic, she had cited travel restrictions and stayed on in the country. During this time, she had managed to secure an Indian passport using forged documents, including an Indian voter ID as well. During questioning, however, her real reason for getting Indian identity documents was revealed. The NIA learned that the suspect and 4 other Sri Lankan nationals had been using fake documents to access funds from a bank account at the Indian Overseas Bank branch in Mumbai. The money was being used to fund an LTT revival, the NIA revealed. Francisca was arrested on the 1st of October at a domestic airport in Chennai while attempting to travel to Bengaluru with her final destination mentioned as Mumbai. The National Investigation Agency has named her 4 accomplices as Keniston Fernando, K. Bhaskaran, Johnson Samuel and L. Sellamuthu and has deployed teams to arrest them. Last October, the NIA arrested an alleged former LTT intelligence agent, Satkunam alias Sabesan, after the interception of a Sri Lankan fishing vessel carrying 5 AK-47 assault rifles, over 1,000 9mm rounds and 300 kilograms of heroin on board. According to an NIA statement at the time, Sabesan had played a crucial role in routing proceeds from the LTT's drug smuggling operation to former cadres in Sri Lanka to fund a revival in the island's northern province. Earlier this month, the Tamil Nadu crime branch revealed links between Sabesan and underworld kingpin Angola Lokka, who died in exile in Coimbatore in 2020.
Now then, the Ministry of Health issued a new set of guidelines governing the treatment and quarantine of COVID-19 patients. According to the new guidelines, patients at treatment centres whose conditions improve from mild to moderate symptoms and no fever without the use of antipyretics can be released from isolation 7 days after the rapid antigen test. In the meantime, rules for inbound travellers were also relaxed by the Director General of Health Services. The new guidelines, however, include a mandatory minimum of a $50,000 COVID insurance for foreign passport holders. The Ministry of Health has released its exit strategy for COVID patients and close contacts. According to the new guidelines, patients at treatment centres whose conditions improve from mild to moderate symptoms and no fever without the use of antipyretics can be released from isolation 7 days after the rapid antigen test. Further, patients under home care can be released from isolation 7 days after the date of the PCR test or onset and is symptom and fever-free without antipyretics. Those who have not improved mild to moderate symptoms and continue to have fever are asked to contact their area MOH for medical advice. In addition, fully vaccinated close contacts will not be quarantined if they do not show symptoms and can continue to work as long as they have no symptoms. In the meantime, all partially or unvaccinated close contacts too can be released from quarantine after completing 7 days from the date of the PCR test. In the meantime, the Director General of Health Services today issued new guidelines for travellers arriving in Sri Lanka from overseas during the pandemic of COVID-19. As per the guidelines, foreign passport holders who do not possess a valid visa must obtain a landing permit or visa from the Department of Immigration and Emigration prior to their departure from overseas. In addition, they are required to have travel insurance of at least $50,000, including cover for hospitalized treatment for COVID-19 infection. The guidelines specify that the period of stay in Sri Lanka and additional 14 days should be covered by the insurance. Further, travellers 12 years and above will need to mandatorily carry a negative PCR test report within 72 hours of departure. In addition, children from 12 to 18 years of age will be considered fully vaccinated if their departure is 2 weeks after a single Pfizer vaccine dose. Meanwhile, tourists will also have to carry their vaccination cards on them, translated into English from their native language. Now, a batch of 194 Sri Lanka Prisons Emergency Action and Tactical Force personnel passed out yesterday as part of a new armed response, riot control and anti-corruption unit. Addressing the parade, Defence Secretary General Kamal Gunaratne revealed plans to increase the force to 500 by hiring experienced military veterans with unblemished service records.
The Sri Lanka Prisons Department has completed the training and deployment of a new armed response unit called the Sri Lanka Prisons Emergency Action and Tactical Force. The passing out parade for 194 new personnel was held yesterday and was presided over by Defence Secretary General Kamal Gunaratne and Commissioner General of Prisons Tushara Upulveniya at the Centre for Research and Training in Corrections at the Angadukola Palace Prison. The introduction of the new unit is part of a spate of reforms being introduced to the prisons and correctional system and its internal intelligence units. The unit will also be tasked with dealing with any future prison riots as well. Speaking at the ceremony, the Defence Secretary stated that the unit will be used to thwart corruption and misconduct in prisons and to control the issue in a more transparent manner. The Defence Secretary also revealed plans to increase its cadre to 500 with the recruitment of former Tri-Forces members discharged from service with unblemished service records.
Welcome back. This is First at 9. Now, at the Colombo Bourse, Sri Lankan shares fell more than 1% today, weighed down by losses in financial and industrial stocks. The CSE All Share Price Index ended down 1.38% at 12,885.70, posting its third straight session of losses. For the year, the index is up 5.4% after gaining 80.5% in 2021, helped by strong domestic buying. Now, the S&P SL 20 meanwhile also fell by 1.73% to close at 4,400.91 points. Now, with that, here's a more detailed rundown on today's market activity.
So today also market continued the negative sentiment and closing the red zone for the third consecutive day while losing close to 180 points. However, turnover recorded at moderate levels of 8 billion. So when talking about the index movement, index opened with an uptrend hitting an intraday high of 13,270. However, index started to gradually decline, hitting an intraday low of 12,652 as investors continue the negative sentiment. So today's decline was mainly led by retail favorite counters which are operating in the diversified financials and transportation sector, pulling down the index significantly. Activities were also into the lower scale compared to the past few days and number of trades were recorded at 58,703. So today's turnover of 8 billion was mainly led by a joint contribution of 47% from the transportation and food, beverage and tobacco sector counters.
In the meantime, the rupee continues to be at 202.99 cents against the US dollar. Now let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee fared against other major currencies during the day. And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.